Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and yeah, it looks like the charts are heading back to normal. Shame they're not very good. And it's Billboard Breakdown.
I don't remember.
So this was a weird week to discuss, mostly because I've got no clue how much any of it's gonna last. Yeah, the holiday music is gone, which caused the expected reset, partially spurred on because year-end countdowns tend to cause momentary spikes for the previous year's songs. But next week we likely have a Bad Bunny album bomb that's probably gonna bulldoze the Hot 100, so how stable any of this is, at least for now, it's an open question. Well, whatever, I'm behind on year-end list on the main channel, I don't want to waste any time, so our top 10, where it seems like, finally, Die With A Smile by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars clinched the number 1, basically on attrition at this point. It doesn't have the top spot on radio or sales, but the streaming margin is enough to finally take the top. Hell, if it wasn't for the holidays, it probably would have happened much earlier. And that was enough to beat out a bar song Tipsy by Shaboozey at number 2, which has the edge on sales and the radio, where it recovered any holiday gap pretty fast, probably to lose on the streaming margin. But then we got Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish at number 3, which appears to be an aggregate of consistent radio and the streaming surge, and that was enough to pull ahead of our first returning entry, Lose Control by Teddy Swims at number 4. See, I get why it belongs here, even despite technically going into recurrence. The radio and streaming are still shockingly strong. It would qualify under any other circumstance, but come on, radio, if you want to be close to relevant in 2025, you could pick up the pace rotating songs out here. Then we got Apartment by Rosé and Bruno Mars up to number 5, and this is an interesting case where the YouTube and streaming is really strong, but the radio is kind of sluggish fully getting behind it, but it's at least moving faster than That's So True by Gracie Abrams up at number 6, which is surging on streaming, but again, the radio's not getting there that quickly. Then we got Luther by Kendrick Lamar and SZA at number 7, and I think the holidays blunted its proper shot at number 1, because while the streaming's there, it's really taken a while for the radio to support it. Starting to notice a pattern here or something? Well, compare it to I Had Some Help by Post Malone and Morgan Wallen back at number 8, which is the opposite case where there was something of a streaming recovery, but the radio has never fully dropped it. And what do you know, to round out our top 10, we got 2 tracks from Sabrina Carpenter where it's the exact same place, with Espresso at number 9 and Taste at number 10. You'd think the holidays would be a time to move on from all this, but nope, of course not. But alright, our losers and dropouts, and there's honestly nothing really to say there. The holiday music exodus is expected. It didn't really take anything else that big with it beyond a couple SZA album bomb cuts. And hell, the only loser we had this week was from SZA with Chill Baby falling to 95. But with our gains and returns, they're a different beast altogether. And here's the thing, nearly half of the Hot 100 are gains, and we have over a third of the chart in returns. It literally does not make sense to list them all when Bad Bunny's coming next week. So I am going to focus on returns, but instead of the gains, let's highlight the SZA album bomb cuts that actually stuck around and were among the songs that didn't move that much. Drive at 59, Diamond Boy DTM at 60, What Do I Do at 62, Another Life at 64, Cry Baby at 71, But Kitchen at 77. But okay, let's run through the returns from the top down, and outside of the top 10, let's start off with the expected long-running tracks that are making the most out of their year-end countdown. Like Beautiful Things by Benson Boone at 12, Too Sweet by Hozier at 14, Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan at 17, Stargazing by Miles Smith at 19, Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar at 20, Who by Jimin at 24, Please 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 by Sabrina Carpenter at 26, I Am Not Okay by Jelly Roll at 28, and Million Dollar Baby by Tommy Richmond at 30. Then we got some of the lesser hits, like Lies, Lies, Lies by Morgan Wallen at 34, Wildflower by Billie Eilish at 35, I Love You, I'm Sorry by Gracie Abrams at 43, Guy For That by Post Malone featuring Luke Combs at 54, and Am I Okay by Megan Moroney at 59. Then we got the songs that are capitalizing on post-holiday space that were never quite as big before or just never got going properly. I Ain't Savin' by Jordan Davis at 61, Bad Dreams by Teddy Swims at 65, No Pull by Don Toliver at 66, Close to You by Gracie Abrams at 69, Diet Pepsi by Addison Rae at 73, Apple by Charlie Charlie XCX at 74, Burning Down by Alex Warren at 79, and Disease by Lady Gaga at 80. Finally, Shake That Ass Twerk Song by Boss Mandilo at 81, Gang Baby by Annalie Chapa at 82, K by Rauw Alejandro and Romeo Santos at 83, Brokey by Lotto at 85, just because there's space doesn't mean there's quality, remember that. Rosanese by Tito Double P at 85, looks like this guy's sticking around more than I thought, more on him later. Juno by Sabrina Carpenter at 86, What Is This Feeling from Wicked at 88, El Club by Bad Bunny at 89, Dodger Blue by Kendrick Lamar, Wally the Sensei, Siet 7X and Roddy Ricch at 90, The Largest by Big X The Plug at 92, Wondering Why by the Red Clay Strays still at 93, Holy Smokes by Bailey Zimmerman at 96, High Road by Zach Bryan at 97, On One Tonight by Gunna at 98, and Saint Chroma by Tyler the Creator featuring Daniel Caesar at 99. But okay, it actually leads to a pretty reasonable list of new arrivals that are pretty much just Latin music and country, so okay, let's get this started with number 100, Cowboy Songs by George Birge.
Anything sounds like wailing, right here's where I'll be staying all night long, 'cause she only dances cowboy songs.
The last time I covered George Birge was in very late 2023, when he was a new act being pushed by Nashville who had some TikTok success, and to quote my review at the time, he was mediocre as hell, I'm gonna forget this in record time. Well, just over a year later, we now have another song getting pushed from his EP that dropped last February, and, well, I guess it's better, but not by much. It's certainly trying to carry a little more attitude with the louder guitars and the touches of pedal steel and the minor keys, but none of it sounds that good with that chalky trap skitter before the more live drums come in for an overblown hook that, quite frankly, Birge does not have the vocal power to really sell. Maybe it's the very compressed mix, but he's trying to belt and he's got no real muscle there, even before we get to the smoky, synthetic backing vocals that do not help. And I gotta be honest, the lyrics don't help matters either. He's infatuated with this girl who loves cowboy songs, whereas the track goes on, you get the impression he doesn't really know anything about this girl, but he's still gonna show up at the same bar with the hope that she might show up regardless of the night, maybe give him some attention. Okay, dude, speaking from some rather embarrassing experience, if you try that, it never works out. So yeah, it definitely feels like it only charted because there's some space and no competition, and I'll say it again, gonna forget it in record time. Number 94, Ends of the Earth by Ty Myers.
I'll be your man. Whoa.
And speaking of country acts I barely recognize, we got a case where the guy in question's out of Texas, he blew up on TikTok, and not only is my main channel bigger than his, I'm apparently twice his age. Almost feels like punching down. In any case, he's had a number of singles find some success. This is his first charting hit, and you know, credit to him, I hear the talent for a pretty decent traditional leaning country song, with warm, smoldering guitars and touches of organ and pedal steel, where he's got some credible grit to his voice. But I do have two issues. The first being the lyrics having some solid detail for a good love song, but I think the exasperation at the girl kinda jerking him around, it's a little bit overplayed, especially given how sincere and otherwise direct he is. It just feels a bit petulant. Now, the other issue to my surprise is the song's length. A lot of TikTok tracks are extremely abbreviated, but the tempo here has this feeling rather long, has me wondering whether or not it's getting chipmunked on TikTok, which for a relatively basic composition has you sitting in all those emotions, and that can be a mixed bag. But overall, I hear promise, and the Texas country scene does tend to take care of its own, so you know what, with that album coming up in a month or so, I'm curious what's next. Give it a shot. Number 91, PIToRRO de Coco by Bad Bunny.
Loco, llorando y bebiendo, PIToRRO de Coco, que me trajo abuelo, pa' que vacilara, no pa' que por un cuero, a las 12 llorara.
Alright, well, we're going to be talking a lot about Bad Bunny more next week, and hey, I heard good things about that new album. Apparently it's a lot more upbeat. I'm kind of curious where he winds up. Now, apparently this was inspired by more Puerto Rican Christmas music, and around New Year's as the second single, so I wasn't really sure where it was going sonically, and I'll say this, it's at least trying for something a bit different, with a more eclectic blend of guitar pickups across fidelities with the fizzy clank of the textured percussion and the firmer bass. And while the tinny squeals that open up the track blending into the more dour synths, they kind of threw me off guard, I was eventually able to buy in a little more. But anybody saying this is more upbeat did not translate the lyrics, because this appears to be a holiday season where Bad Bunny sounds thoroughly miserable, drunk on cane rum where he daydreams about kissing his ex at midnight, as his family's kind of exasperated that they can't celebrate his success. He's not in the mood. It's just a very sour vibe, and while I get the timing to maybe push something like this as a single around the holidays, it's just shockingly unpleasant, especially when the vocals are so compressed and processed right at the very front and they don't blend with the rest of the mix. And yeah, even if that was the point, it's the second single where I'm not convinced about this album at all. We'll just have to see next week, I guess. Number 87, Nadie by Tito Double P. So I guess Tito Double P is gonna stick around now that Peso Pluma's hype's fallen off a little. In any case, this is a single from his next album, and okay, I'll say this. It feels like the instrumental mix has a little bit more flair around the farty horns, the accordion, and the striding groove. And the misty outro is kind of cool, and Tito Double P, he's at least gonna commit to a lot of broad nasal presence. It feels a little bit more distinctive compared to, well, a lot of regional Mexican songs that I can barely tell them apart. But then you translate the lyrics, and my god, what is it with the broad asshole behavior post-breakup here, where he's split between telling her off and bragging about all the new women he has, and also very clearly having "not over her" written all over the rest of the track, as he tries to drown everything in liquor and weed, where she doesn't seem to be that interested in the powder he's laying out. Guys, given that this appears to be a running theme in a lot of this genre of music, maybe try a different tactic. Now again, I find it kind of hard to evaluate a lot of regional Mexican music, but at least for me, yeah, you know what, I'm sorry. Probably will not go back to it. Number 75, Boys Back Home by Dylan Marlowe and Dylan Scott.
Yeah, I'm wishing I was with y'all, singing them old songs, trucks circled up round a bonfire.
Okay, so you might recognize Dylan Scott as one of the perpetual C-listers I've had to cover, but Dylan Marlowe might be kind of unfamiliar. He's a songwriter who's worked behind the scenes to some success. He's now signed to Sony Nashville, and this came off of his debut album from last September, where I actually heard a little hype behind it. Now, what I did discover is that it's not a cover of the very charming Hayley Whitters song from a couple years ago, but an utterly stock bro country track complete with programmed percussion, the overblown guitars where I had to check to see if Joey Moy wasn't producing it, and a lot of stock references to the boys back home full of dirt roads, brand names, and drinking beer. And look, the problem is that after listening to over a decade of these songs and making the definitive video essay on the subgenre, I hear the third-rate, utterly generic brand of this where there's shockingly little chemistry and very little that feels special or unique, to the point where the version of the song that replaces Dylan Scott with Young Gravy, it might actually be more interesting. Note that I did not say better, although it is kind of hilarious. So yeah, this is not worth remembering. It's not worth your time. Next, number 50, Loco by Neton Vega. Genuine question, why are we keeping Neton Vega around when he's delivering dated reggaeton with the emotional range of early 21 Savage but with less imagination, at least before he tries to sing with no presence nor power? But okay, if you're able to get past the rather bland production and percussion and inert delivery, you find a decent stuttering and hollowed out synth progression and lyrics about trying to get this girl to believe she likes him amidst a cloud of weed smoke as the rebound. And I gotta believe that a rebound is the only reason why anyone would seek this guy out, because there's no personality to him otherwise. At least Bad Bunny performs like he means it. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna recommend this either. Not good. And finally, number 27, Smile by Morgan Wallen.
Smile, girl, you know it's been a while.
When I I saw this track get released and immediately get chart traction, not only did that convince me we aren't getting rid of Morgan Wallen in 2025, he might just have more momentum than ever, and that's not exactly a good sign, given how polarized the response to this song seemed to be. And while to probably only my disappointment, it's not a cover of a Lone Star's Smile, which is an underrated single from them, this is, well, kind of an odd choice for a lead-off single, I'll give him that. It feels very restrained and atmospheric, with a bare guitar and some ghostly vocals, and no drums. Very intentional to create that feeling of isolation while you're in a dying relationship, where it's the first time that she's smiled in a long time, even if it's just for a picture with her drunk friend at the bar. And I can't deny that it is effective in creating that atmosphere, even if it feels more like an album cut than a proper single. But Morgan Wallen himself might be the weak link here. His upper register kind of sounds mewling and thin as he tries to get near a falsetto. I just don't think he's got the emotional range to sell it this well in that register. It strikes a kind of an odd note for me, and when you realize that this picture, even if they're together, is just winding up in someone's IG reel, and Morgan Wallen's trying to give it so much sentimental weight, I'm not saying it can't work, but I don't think this song feeling so skeletal can pull it off. So yeah, you know what, not bad, but I don't see myself as a fan. Gotta say it. And yeah, that's our week. Not really a good one by any means, where for the best, Ends of the Earth by Ty Myers just kind of runs away with it. Worst is trickier. There's a whole lot of mediocre this week, but I think I'm gonna give it to Loco by Neton Vega because it's kind of rare I get this irritated by sheer lack of personality getting rewarded. That's kind of perversely impressive. In any case, next week Bad Bunny should be taking over, maybe a little bit of Lil Baby. Stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.